A woman went to the grocery store to buy a turkey for her big family dinner. She searched through all the frozen turkeys but couldn't seem to find one large enough. So she asked a young employee, "Excuse me, do these turkeys get any bigger?" With a straight face, he replied, "No, ma'am. They're not growing anymore." Sometimes the best laughs come from the simplest answers. So, two young guys in their mid-20s are sitting at a table in the Horseshoe Bar in Glasgow having a beer. One of the guys remarks to the other, "Boy, you look tired." His friend replies, "Mate, I'm exhausted. My girlfriend wants to cuddle all the time, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 times a night. She wakes me up at all hours. I don't know what to do." Old Archie, standing at the bar, overhears their conversation. He looks over at the two young men and leans across to their table and says, "Son, marry her. That'll put an end to all that carry-on." A man walks into a drugstore with his 8-year-old son. As they pass the condom display, the boy stops, points, and asks, "Dad, what are those?" Dad, cool as ever, replies, "Those are condoms, son. Grown-ups use them for safe love." The boy nods. "Oh, like we learned in health class." He grabs a 3-pack. "Why are there only 3? Dad smiles. "That's for high schoolers. 1 for Friday, 1 for Saturday, and 1 for Sunday." "Got it," says the boy, impressed. Then he picks up a 6-pack. "And this one?" "That's for college guys. 2 for Friday, 2 for Saturday, and 2 for Sunday." The boy's eyes nearly pop out. "Whoa." Finally, he holds up a 12-pack. "And who on earth needs this many?" Dad sighs deeply. "Married men. 1 for January, 1 for February, 1 for March." A blonde got tired of all the blonde jokes. So one night, she went home and memorized all the state capitals. The next day at work, a guy started telling a blonde joke. She cut him off and said, "Enough. I want you all to know that I went home last night and did something none of you could probably do. I memorized all the state capitals." Skeptical, one coworker asked, "Really? Okay then. What's the capital of Nevada?" With confidence, she replied, "N." An old lady goes to the doctor and says, "Doc, I can't stop farting. They're silent with no smell, but I've let out 20 in the past 5 minutes sitting here." The doc gives her some pills and tells her to come back next week. The next week, the old lady comes back and says, "Doc, I took the pills. The farts are still silent, but now they stink." The doc says, "Great. We've cleared your sinuses. Now let's work on your hearing." A biker walks into a coffee shop wearing full riding gear. Helmet, gloves, leather jacket, the works. He orders a double espresso. The barista raises an eyebrow. "Rough ride?" The biker laughs. "Nah, just gearing up. My bike runs on gas. I run on caffeine." As he sips, a curious customer asks, "Aren't you afraid of spilling coffee all over that gear?" He smiles and says, "After dodging rain bugs and one very confused goose, this cup is the least dangerous thing I've held today." The barista nods. "If you can survive the road, you've earned your shot of espresso." A cat passes on and arrives in heaven. At the gates, God smiles and says, "You've been a good cat all your life. Whatever you want, just ask." The cat replies, "Well, I lived with a poor family on a farm and always had to sleep on hard wooden floors. I'd love a soft place to rest." "Say no more," says God. Poof. A giant, fluffy pillow appears. A few days later, a group of mice arrive in heaven. God gives them the same offer. "All our lives we were chased by cats, dogs, even brooms," the mice squeak. "If only we had roller skates, we wouldn't have to run anymore." Poof. Each mouse is given shiny little roller skates, and they speed off, thrilled. A week later, God checks in on the cat, who's stretched out in bliss on his pillow. "How's everything going? Are you happy here?" The cat yawns, stretches, and smiles. "Happy? I've never been happier. And those Meals on Wheels you keep sending over? They're the best." The driver screamed, lost control of the car, nearly hit a bus, jumped the curb, and stopped just inches from a shop window. After a long, awkward silence, the driver said, "Bro, please don't ever do that again. You scared the life out of me." The passenger apologized. "Sorry, I didn't think a little tap would freak you out that much." The driver replied, "Not your fault. It's my first day as an Uber driver. For the last 25 years, I've been driving a hearse." Tommy walks into church for confession. "Forgive me, Father. I've sinned. I was with a girl." The priest asks, "Tommy O'Shaughnessy, is that you?" "Yes, Father." "Who was the girl?" "I can't say, Father. Don't want to ruin her reputation." The priest tries guessing. "Patricia Fitzgerald?" "I can't tell." "Lisa O'Shanter?" "Never." "Kathy Odell?" "My lips are sealed." "Fiona Mallory?" "Sorry, Father." "Brenda O'Malley?" "Nope." Finally, the priest sighs. "You've sinned, so you can't be an altar boy for 4 months. Now go and behave." Tommy walks back to his friend Sean, grins and whispers, 4 months off, and 5 great leads. Once upon a time, a king decided he wanted to go fishing. Before leaving, he asked his royal weather forecaster about the day's outlook. The forecaster confidently assured him, "Your Majesty, you have nothing to fear. There will be no rain for days." Satisfied, the king and queen set off for the river. On their way, they passed a humble farmer riding his donkey. The farmer bowed and said, "Your Majesty, I advise you to turn back. A great rainstorm will arrive very soon." The king, amused, replied, "My good man, I pay my meteorologist a fortune because he is a learned expert with years of experience. I trust him, not you." And so the king continued on. But only a short time later, a torrential rain drenched the royal couple. The court chuckled at the sight of their soaked king and queen. Furious, the king stormed back to the palace and immediately fired the forecaster. He then summoned the farmer and offered him the job. "Your Majesty," said the farmer, "I know nothing about forecasting. I only watch my donkey. When his ears droop, I know rain is coming." So the king hired the donkey on the spot. When the pastor's wife was expecting their first baby, he asked the church board if they might consider giving him a small raise. After some discussion, the congregation agreed on a new policy. Every time the pastor's family grew, so would his paycheck. It sounded fair at first, until the couple had 6 children. Suddenly, the budget was feeling the weight of all those blessings. The members called a meeting to figure out what to do. Voices were raised, arguments broke out, and people couldn't agree on how to handle the cost of the pastor's ever-expanding household. Finally, the pastor stood and said calmly, "Brothers and sisters, children are gifts from God, and my wife and I are grateful to receive every blessing He sends." The room went quiet. Then, from the very back, an elderly woman stood up. Her voice was gentle, but her words carried through the entire sanctuary. "Rain is a gift from God, too. But when we get too much of it, we wear boots." The congregation roared with laughter, and even the pastor couldn't help but nod in agreement. Ronnie had 2 great loves in life, his Harley-Davidson and his Mustache. Both were loud, hard to maintain, and got him in trouble with women. His wife, Barb, hadn't ridden on the back of his bike in over a decade. The last time she did, she claimed she swallowed 3 bugs and half a squirrel. But today was different. It was sunny, she was feeling bold, and Ronnie had promised to take it slow and scenic. Barb strapped on her helmet, hopped on the back, and they rumbled down the road. That's when it hit her. Not the wind, not the nostalgia, the mustache. Ronnie's glorious, untrimmed, wind-whipped facial hair began slapping her across the face like a rebellious octopus. It got in her eyes, her mouth. At one point, she could have sworn it tied itself in a knot around her glasses. "Ronnie!" she shrieked, sputtering. "I'm being attacked by your face!" he shouted over the roar. "What? You're having a blast?" "No! I said you need a trim or a beard net." They hit a curve. His mustache whipped behind him again, right into her nostrils. She gagged. "What's in this thing? It smells like bacon and motor oil." He chuckled. "That's the scent of freedom, baby." Barb leaned forward, muffled and furious. "You smell like freedom's armpit." By the time they pulled into the gas station, Barb stumbled off the bike, eyes watering, and reached into her purse. Not for lip balm, not for a tissue, for her eyebrow scissors. Ronnie blinked. "What are those for?" She pointed to his upper lip. "We're either trimming it now, or I'm filing for mustache-related divorce." He chuckled. "You said you missed the thrill of the open road." She shot back, "I didn't say I wanted to taste it." Ma and Pa were old hillbillies living on a farm. One day, Pa discovers the outhouse hole is full. "Ask that college grad down the road," says Ma. So Pa drives over and asks, "Sir, how do I empty my outhouse?" The young man says, "Simple. Get 2 sticks of dynamite, 1 short fuse, 1 long. Light them both under the outhouse. The first will launch it into the air. The second will spread the waste across your farm as fertilizer, and the outhouse should land back on the hole." Pa thanks him, buys the dynamite, sets it up, and runs behind a tree. Suddenly, Ma rushes into the outhouse just as the first stick goes off. Blast! Then the second, pow! Poop flies everywhere. The outhouse crashes back down, right on top of the hole. Pa runs over, opens the door. "Ma, are you okay?" She pulls up her panties and says, "Yeah, but I'm sure glad I didn't fart in the kitchen." John lived his life by statistics and had a serious fear of flying. One day, his friend Bill asked, "Why are you so scared of planes?" John replied, "Scared? Not really. I've just calculated the odds of a problem happening on a plane, and they're way too high for me." A few days later, Bill boarded a flight and was shocked to find John sitting right next to him. "What happened? Did the odds change?" Bill asked. John smiled and said, "Nope, the odds haven't changed, but I calculated that flying with a friend makes it much more manageable, and that's my new strategy." An elderly woman walked up to the bar on a cruise ship and said with a grin, "Could I have a scotch with just 2 tiny drops of water?" The bartender poured the drink and slid it over. "Happy to. Anything special today?" She beamed. "It's my 80th birthday." "Then this one's on the house," the bartender said warmly. As she sipped, the lady sitting next to her leaned in and said, "Happy birthday. Let me buy your next one." "Thank you kindly," the woman said. "Bartender, another scotch, with just 2 drops of water." A few minutes later, the gentleman on her other side chimed in. "I'd like to buy your next drink." She nodded happily. "Another scotch with 2 drops of water, please." By now, the bartender couldn't hold back his curiosity. "Ma'am, forgive me for asking, but why always 2 drops of water?" The birthday lady chuckled, leaned closer, and whispered, "Sweetheart, when you get to be my age, you learn how to handle your liquor. It's the water I can't hold." After 3 weeks of waxing, buffing, and mumbling curse words at YouTube tutorials, Maxwell finally had his beloved '68 Cruiser ready to hit the road. "Come on, Adele," he said, throwing on his old leather jacket, now snug in all the wrong places. "Let's relive the glory days." Adele squinted at the bike. "Maxwell, the last time we relived glory, you got stuck in a hammock and pulled a hamstring." He tossed her a helmet. "It's different this time. I upgraded the seat cushion." "Great," she muttered. Maybe my spine won't vibrate into a different zip code this time. They rolled down the neighborhood street at what could generously be described as a determined crawl. Maxwell beamed. Adele sighed. Suddenly, a turtle shuffled past them on the sidewalk, wearing a tiny, reflective vest. Adele leaned in. Maxwell. Did that turtle just pass us? And did he have safety gear? Maxwell squinted. That's Todd, from Bridge Club. He's training for the neighborhood fun walk. After his hip replacement, he thinks he's bionic. Adele raised an eyebrow. Should I wave? Nah. He's moving too fast. Might sprain your wrist. As Todd power walked past, again on the sidewalk, he gave a smug little nod. Adele waved anyway. Maxwell growled, Remind me to key his walker. Doug Diesel McHenry hadn't been pulled over in years. Not because he was a law-abiding citizen, he just rode so slow now that Turtles politely asked him to move aside. He was halfway through a scenic ride through the foothills, humming along at a blistering 43 miles per hour, when flashing lights lit up behind him. Doug grumbled, pulled over, and tugged his helmet off with the grace. The young officer strolled up, grinning from ear to ear. Afternoon, sir, he said, notebook in hand. Doug sighed. Let me guess. My tailpipe's too loud, my turn signal's too old, and I look too damn cool for this speed limit. The cop chuckled. Actually, I'm not writing you a ticket. Doug squinted suspiciously. You're not? Nah, said the cop, running his hand reverently along the tank. I just wanted a better look at your bike. Doug blinked. You lit me up like a Christmas tree. For a fanboy photo op? Exactly, the cop said. My dad had one just like this, minus the rust and custom duct tape seat. Doug grinned despite himself. That duct tape's vintage. They chatted for a few minutes before the cop snapped a picture and waved him off. Doug rode away, muttering, Still got it. But the bike coughed in disagreement halfway down the road. Why men prefer to watch football in pubs or cafes. Wife. Where are you going? Husband. Watch the game at the pub. Wife. Why don't you watch it with me? Husband. I want to watch it with my mates. Wife. So I mean nothing to you? Husband. Okay, I am staying. Wife. Why is the goalkeeper in black? Husband. He is mourning his ma. Wife. The commentator, how does he know all the names? Husband. It's his job. Wife. There's a goal. Husband. Nah, it's an offside. Wife. What is offside? Husband. Nah, it's a goal, just kidding. Wife. Okay, but what is offside? Husband. Offside is the name of the coach. Wife. Where's the coach? Husband. He is off the field. Wife. Why isn't he playing? Husband. Nah, he doesn't play. He changes the players and the game tactics. Wife. Tell me, is Maradona there? Husband. Nah, he deed. Wife. Oh my God, how? Husband. He watched a game with his wife. That's how the fight started, and we have been trying since last Sunday to settle the matter. A wife and her husband were throwing a dinner party for some very important guests, politicians, business leaders, the crème de la crème of French society. Everything had to be perfect. Just an hour before the guests were to arrive, the wife suddenly gasped, We're short on snails for the Escargot. Panicking, she turned to her husband and said, Run down to the beach and collect some. Quickly! Very reluctantly, he grabbed a bucket and trudged down to the shore. As he was scooping up snails, he noticed a stunning woman walking nearby. He glanced over, thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if she came over and talked to me? A few minutes later, she did. They chatted. One thing led to another. She invited him back to her place. Hours passed. Things got hot and heavy. He ended up falling asleep. The next morning at 7 a.m., he jolted awake. "Oh no, the dinner party!" He leapt up, threw on his clothes, grabbed his bucket of snails, and sprinted home. As he reached the front steps of his building, completely breathless, he tripped and spilled the entire bucket. Snails went flying everywhere. At that exact moment, the front door flew open. His wife stood there, arms crossed, furious. He looked down at the snails, then looked up at her, then back at the snails, and said, "Come on, lads, we're nearly there." The phone rings, and a little boy answers. "Hi, son, it's Dad. Is your mom around?" "Yeah, but she's upstairs in the bedroom with Uncle." There's a long pause. Then the dad says, "Okay, here's what I want you to do. Go upstairs, stand outside the bedroom and shout, 'Mom, Dad's just pulled into the driveway.' Then come back and tell me what happens, all right?" The boy says, "Sure, Dad." A minute later, he comes back to the phone, breathless. "You wouldn't believe it. Mom came running out of the bedroom completely naked, tripped over the top step, and now she's lying at the bottom of the stairs and not moving. And Uncle, he jumped out the window head first into the swimming pool." The dad gasps. "The pool?" The boy says, "Yeah." There's a pause. Then the dad says, "Oh, wait a minute, is this 007638926? 4 old men went into the pro shop after playing 18 holes of golf. The pro asked, "Did you guys have a good game today?" The first old guy said, "Yes, I had 3 riders today." The second old guy said, "I had the most riders ever. I had 5. The third old guy said, "I had 7 riders, the same as last time." The last old man said, "I beat my old record. I had 12 riders today." After they went into the locker room, another golfer who had heard the old guys talking about their game went to the pro and said, "I have been playing golf for a long time and thought I knew all the terminology of the game. But what's a rider?" The pro said, "A rider is when you hit the ball far enough to get in the golf cart and ride it."